Seriously, we barely had any room in the house. We could barely play hide and seek.
The ugliest part of the Browns' new house isn't the decor. It's the entitlement echoing inside it. Kody and Robin Brown's newest dream home has become less a sign of success and more a billboard for how far they've drifted from reality. Watching young Ari skip through the sprawling property, declaring their previous $1 million house too small, was less charming and more a reflection of the bubble her parents have built around her. When a child calls 4,400 square feet cramped, it's not a child's fault. It's a masterclass in learned entitlement. Once upon a time, the Browns squeezed nearly 20 people into the Lehigh house and somehow survived with laughter and minimal whining. Now, the mere mention of limited space sends the younger Browns into a spiral of faux suffering. The irony is unbearable. A family that once prided itself on faith, humility, and togetherness has replaced all three with clutter, overindulgence, and self-pity. Even the adults seem oblivious to the absurdity. Robin reminisced early in the series about her modest rental in Vegas being the nicest place she'd ever lived. Fast forward, and her youngest is complaining about a McMansion that could host a small country. Perhaps the house only feels smaller because it's packed to the rafters with QVC decor, dollhouse furniture, and the collective ego of its owners. The children's behavior only underscores the problem. When Robin's older daughters sneered at Janelle's trailer, mocking the shower as more like a foot bath, it exposed the rot in the family's value system. These aren't the grounded, resourceful kids who once represented the Brown clan. These are pampered products of overprotection and unchecked indulgence. Kody and Robin have managed to raise their children in a bubble so padded it's practically soundproof. While the original Brown kids were told to grow up, get jobs, and fund their own education, Robin's brood gets new cars, tuition, and hobbies, all without a hint of accountability. Aurora is 23, Brianna 21, yet both live as if adolescence is a permanent state of being. Even Kody brushing Solomon's hair like he's 5 years old suggests a household allergic to reality. Then there's the design delusion. Robin fancies herself an interior designer, calling her style old world, while living in what looks like an overpriced furniture showroom. The new dining table, too large, she claims, could easily fit the entire Brown brood, which might be the real reason she dislikes it. Heaven forbid a symbol of unity be allowed in her house. And let's not forget the cruel irony of a mansion with no bedroom for Truly. A teenage girl forced to play guest in her father's new palace, while adult children have permanent rooms, is both tasteless and telling. The hierarchy in that house is as obvious as its bad wallpaper. TLC, to its credit, has stopped glossing over the cracks. The network seems to relish showing just how tone-deaf the Browns have become. Kody and Robin's obsession with knowing their worth has morphed into a philosophy of self-worship, where worth is measured in square footage, car models, and Instagram-ready interiors. In the end, the Browns' latest home isn't a house. It's a museum of misplaced priorities. Each oversized room echoes with the same hollow truth. Wealth doesn't buy class, and entitlement doesn't build family.
Kody Brown didn't lose Christine because of love. He lost her because of a loan application. It's poetic, really. After years of manipulation, favoritism, and financial sleight of hand, Kody Brown's own greed appears to have handed Christine the leverage she needed to hold him accountable. Not divine intervention, not legal brilliance, just one man's insatiable appetite for bigger, flashier, and more expensive monuments to his ego. When Kody decided he had to have that McMansion with Robin, he set in motion the one thing that would unravel his financial smokescreen: a paper trail. Because when you're applying for a massive home loan, you can't just write spiritual husband and self-proclaimed patriarch under occupation. You have to prove income, assets, liabilities, the whole truth he'd rather keep buried. Those bridge loans and contingency clauses meant that everything, Coyote Pass, the Vegas home sale, every family fund, had to be fully disclosed. And that's all Christine's lawyers needed. One set of loan documents later, and the mystery of Kody's money was suddenly an open book. Had Kody not been so determined to outshine everyone with yet another oversized property, Christine might have spent a fortune on forensic accountants just to locate the assets he so carefully tucked away. Instead, his own ambition did the work for her. Truly, poetic justice wrapped in a mortgage. And it doesn't end there. When Janelle and Mary finally sought legal clarity on how family money had been used to bankroll Robyn's dream home, Kody and Robyn scrambled to shield their spoils. The home was conveniently placed in a trust, no doubt to ensure that the women who helped pay for it walked away with nothing. Yet in qualifying for that very trust and mortgage, Kody had to open his books again, effectively inviting Christine's attorneys into his most guarded financial corners. Karma, as Mary once quipped, does have impeccable timing. Robyn's own admission that the McMansion was purchased with family money only deepens the irony. If that home was indeed a collective asset, then Janelle and Mary's exclusion from its value isn't just unfair, it's financial exploitation disguised as divine destiny. They funded Robyn's sacred cow lifestyle, while being left with a share of Coyote Pass, a property that, thanks to Kody's constant stalling and indecision, remains an empty patch of dirt. Then there's the simple matter of math, which has never been Kody's strong suit. With an estimated $11,000 monthly mortgage, plus utilities, vehicles, and the couple's well-documented shopping habits, they'd need around $20,000 a month just to stay afloat, roughly $40,000 in pre-tax income. That's nearly $500,000 a year to maintain a lifestyle built entirely on television checks and self-delusion. Unless my sister wife's closet suddenly becomes a luxury empire, foreclosure seems less like speculation and more like inevitability. The irony continues in Kody's attempts to frame a room for Truly as evidence of his fatherly devotion. The timing was no coincidence. It was a performative attempt to satisfy court expectations of shared custody. The camera may have captured a touching gesture, but the paperwork behind it revealed something far less flattering. A man scrambling to appear responsible only when a judge required it. In the end, Christine didn't just win child support, she won vindication. Kody's desperate need to project wealth and stability became his undoing. The man who once controlled every financial thread of his plural empire was undone by the same arrogance that built it. And Robyn, ever faithful, may soon discover that divine blessings don't cover 30-year fixed-rate mortgages. Greed isn't just a sin in this story. It's the most honest character on the show. In the latest exhibition of the Brown family's unraveling, the episode featuring Kody and Robyn's move could have doubled as a public service announcement on how not to appear human. The spectacle of Kody grunting over patio furniture while Robyn could scarcely be bothered to open a door was a perfect encapsulation of their joint energy. Performative exhaustion with none of the effort to justify it. The sequence, complete with Kody's daughters gamely attempting to help, exposed a familiar pattern. Robyn floating somewhere between delicate helplessness and passive disdain. It's the same energy that makes her mysteriously unavailable during the endless school runs Kody brags about, as though fatherhood were an Olympic event. One wonders what, precisely, keeps Robyn so busy that she cannot spare a morning to exist in her own household. Then came the crowning jewel of awkwardness, the producer's harmless question about whether they missed having the big family around to help with the move. What followed was a silence so tense it could have been cut with one of Robyn's 6 identical casserole dishes, each presumably chosen for aesthetic value over utility. Neither could answer, because honesty is apparently too labor-intensive for this duo. A simple, "Yes, it's strange without them," would have sufficed, but instead they fumbled like actors who'd lost their cue cards. The hesitation revealed far more than any confession could. Kody waited for Robyn to speak. Robyn waited for Kody to lead. And together they demonstrated the emotional coordination of two people who have rehearsed sincerity until it died of boredom. This, after all, is their eternal rhythm. Kody scans Robyn's face for approval before daring to respond, and she withholds it just long enough to remind him who's in charge. It's an irony worthy of applause. These self-proclaimed soulmates, finally free from the burdens of plural marriage, now unable to hold a conversation without the dead air of resentment filling the room. Even Kody, for one flickering moment, seemed nostalgic for the chaos he once commanded. Perhaps he missed the thrill of ordering around a small army of wives and children, the only domain where his ego truly flourished. Meanwhile, Robin remains the high priestess of passive dependency. Watching her daughters do the heavy lifting while she hovers like a fragile Victorian heiress was almost comedic. One suspects that, deep down, the only thing she truly misses about the old family dynamic is the convenience of being helpless while everyone else broke their backs to serve her. Their collective isolation is now complete. Mykelti, miles away, managed more moving support than Kody and Robin could muster in their own zip code. The absence of friends, neighbors, or any semblance of a social circle only underscores how hollow their self-imposed exile has become. And yet, despite all the dysfunction, the production team keeps giving us what this show has always excelled at. Scenes of the Browns endlessly packing, unpacking, and pretending that the next move will finally fix everything. It never does, of course, but watching them try, while Robin carefully dusts her collection of decorative casserole dishes, remains television's most unintentionally brilliant metaphor for inertia. When "look at this tire" becomes a plotline, you know Sister Wives isn't a reality show anymore. It's a slow funeral for Kody Brown's ego. At this point, watching Sister Wives feels like being trapped in a beige room where people argue about the finish on a table. We're moving. We disagree on this table. We're painting eggplants. Riveting television, truly. The latest episode managed to turn even basic weather into a plotline, which is impressive only in its commitment to mediocrity. Once upon a time, this show's greatest scandal involved catfishing and collapsing marriages, a mess so fascinating that viewers returned out of sheer schadenfreude. But that spark has long burned out. What remains is a tedious loop of half-hearted renovations, furniture squabbles, and the world's most unconvincing attempt at family unity. The irony, of course, is that the next generation seems to be living the plural family dream better than the parents ever did. Christine and Janelle's kids actually embody the spirit of shared family life, while on the opposite end of the country, Kody and Robin preside over a sterile imitation of domestic bliss. The supposed spiritual head of the family has effectively become the trope of the divorced dad, absent from the first three households, yet playing super parent to the new one. It's the kind of storyline one might stumble across in a dozen "Am I the Asshole" posts, only less self-aware. Even the few moments of conflict feel hollow. Christine's envy over Janelle having more access to the grandkids lands flat, and Kody's claims that he wants a big enough house for everyone to visit ring laughably false. If reconciliation were truly his goal, it would start with a phone call, not a floor plan. Meanwhile, the handling of Coyote Pass continues to showcase the selfish convenience of Kody and Robin's decision-making. They only wanted to sell when it suited their needs, ignoring the earlier reasonable requests of Mary and Janelle. And then there's Robin's aesthetic pretensions. Her insistence that her old-world taste defines their decor would be amusing if it weren't so inaccurate. Nothing in that house remotely resembles the grandeur of the Gilded Age or the elegance of the Renaissance. The infamous table, supposedly a design centerpiece, belongs more to the farmhouse clearance sale genre. A simple sanding, lighter stain, and a swap of those dreadful chairs for benches might actually give it character, but perhaps that's asking too much of a home and family that's been stripped of it entirely. In short, Sister Wives has devolved into a lifeless postscript, a once fascinating social experiment now reduced to watching Kody polish the ruins of his own choices. When even the Next Time on Sister Wives teaser inspires nothing but confusion and mild resentment, it's clear. The show isn't just running out of storylines.
it's running out of pulse.
Don't let the price tag fool you. Kody Brown's $2.8 million mansion isn't rich, it's just expensive. There's a fine line between opulence and overcompensation, and Kody Brown's latest dream home leaps over it in vinyl flooring. The house has been paraded as some kind of luxury estate, the pinnacle of success for the last man standing in the Brown family saga. But let's be clear, it's only opulent if one's reference point for grandeur is a mid-range model home from 2003. True opulence is in the details: craftsmanship, thoughtful design, harmony between form and function. Every corner of a genuinely luxurious home whispers of intent and precision. This house, on the other hand, shouts builder's grade from every cracked tile and outdated bathroom fixture. The kitchen layout is a logistical disaster. The mysterious raised diamond patterns on the bar are decorative crimes against purpose, and the fireplaces appear to exist solely because someone panicked during construction and decided symmetry would make them seem expensive. The vinyl floors running through the entire property suggest deeper issues lurking below, perhaps literally. Any contractor worth their salt would wince at the idea of paying nearly $3 million for a house that looks like it's still recovering from the housing bubble. It's not well appointed, it's simply large. The kind of large that impresses those who equate square footage with sophistication. Of course, Kody Brown has long equated bigger with better. In his world, grandeur is measured in the width of a staircase or the echo of one's own voice across an unnecessarily vast foyer. It's no surprise that he and his grifter wife uprooted themselves to chase the illusion of elevation, geographically, emotionally, and financially. Their excuse of too many painful memories in the old house is a farce. The painful memories weren't in the walls, they were standing next to him. The real irony lies in their supposed upgrade being nothing more than a lateral move, an outdated McMansion masquerading as a mansion. The previous home was arguably in a better part of town, but why let logic interfere with delusion? After all, nothing says fresh start quite like overpaying for a fixer-upper wrapped in grandeur's costume. Then there are the twin staircases. Because why settle for one impractical architectural statement when you can have two? Even Kody seemed briefly self-aware, cutting himself off mid-brag when realizing that double staircases border on self-parody. And then there's the doting obsession with his youngest daughter, Ari, whose behavior mirrors exactly what happens when indulgence replaces parenting. The child has been raised into a miniature version of her father's ego, loud, demanding, and allergic to humility. Kody's need to appear as the man who always chooses the best is the cornerstone of his unraveling empire. He mistakes acquisition for achievement, appearance for success. But opulence built on delusion tends to collapse, much like his family, his reputation, and soon perhaps his overpriced monument to mediocrity. In the end, the so-called mansion is nothing more than a reflection of its owner, inflated, outdated, and desperately pretending to be something it's not. TLC doesn't want you to know this, but the Brown kids who stayed on Sister Wives aren't there for family unity. They're there for survival. At this point, the only thing more predictable than Kody Brown's delusions of grandeur is TLC's desperation for usable footage. With the original Sister Wives formula crumbling, the network appears to have turned to its next best source of content, the adult children. Specifically, Madison and Mykelti. These women, now in their late 20s and juggling multiple children, seem to have found themselves back in the family business. Not out of nostalgia, but necessity. Even a modest $2,000 to $3,000 per episode becomes an appealing trade-off when compared to the average yearly salary of many young mothers. And while that figure is a drop in the bucket compared to what the Sister Wives themselves earn, it's still enough to make filming worthwhile for anyone trying to avoid a traditional job while keeping a household afloat. It also neatly explains why most of the other adult kids have opted out. For those pursuing careers, stability, or anonymity, reality television's small paycheck and big scrutiny simply aren't worth it. But for the ones who stayed, like Madison, the decision seems more pragmatic than passionate. Her sudden decision to end her podcast wasn't likely spontaneous either. More plausibly, TLC or Janelle herself may have suggested that she abandon the podcast, an unpredictable liability, and instead funnel her commentary through the show, where it could be monetized and controlled. After all, Outspoken Daughter is a much more profitable storyline than Rogue Podcaster. The situation gains further dimension when considering Madison's husband, Caleb, whose reported kidney failure and past pulmonary embolism raise both personal and financial stakes. According to Madison's own social media, his kidney function sits around 24%, nearing the transplant threshold. It's difficult not to see how this medical uncertainty might influence decisions about remaining in the public eye. Of course, payment is a non-negotiable part of this arrangement. At least, it should be. Anyone appearing on a network reality show deserves compensation, particularly adults no longer bound by their parents' contracts. TLC, a company not known for charitable ventures, would hardly expect free labor from the very people propping up its dwindling ratings. Madison's brief foray into podcasting also proved that her unfiltered thoughts about Kody could attract attention, and TLC noticed. Her critical takes on her father became content gold, and the network swiftly pivoted to integrate that same dynamic into the televised narrative. But as any longtime viewer of reality television knows, the shelf life of familial drama is short. Eventually, the audience's fascination fades, and the cast's marketability follows. Today, even former reality darlings like Kate Gosselin are reduced to live streaming sympathy pleas from their bedrooms. What's left on Sister Wives now resembles a workplace in decline. The talented employees have resigned, and those without other prospects are clinging to their desks until the final paycheck clears. It's an unfortunate truth that the more capable brown children, those with education, ambition, and a grasp of self-preservation, have moved on. The ones who remain are the ones who can't afford not to. There's a sadness in watching the next generation, the grandchildren, brought into the cycle. One might expect that after growing up under relentless public exposure, the adult children would be eager to shield their own kids from the same spotlight. Some do, thankfully. At least one new grandchild has been kept off camera. Yet others seem content to repeat the pattern, trading privacy for income and authenticity for airtime. With Janelle still tethered to the show and living nearby, Madison's participation is an easy choice. Low-hanging fruit in a franchise running out of storylines. Raised under Kody's watchful eye, she spent years absorbing the family's contradictions. Unlike Logan, who was groomed to mimic his father's pseudo-patriarchal bluster, Madison was raised in a system that equated female worth with early marriage and motherhood. That kind of indoctrination doesn't vanish overnight. So yes, the next generation of Browns may be cashing checks, but they're also cashing in on the only legacy they were ever given: the performance of family life, sold one episode at a time.
Christine Brown didn't leave Kody to find freedom. She left him to find a house she could brag about on repeat.
There should be a drinking game for every time Christine Brown mentions her house, though viewers might not survive the episode. Apparently, loving her home has become her entire personality. She likes her house. Kody should like his house. McKelty's house is older, but better suited. And as for North Carolina, don't even suggest it. Christine has a house in Utah with David, whom she reminds us repeatedly is patient, an adjective that now feels less like praise and more like a diagnosis. The monotony of Sister Wives has reached almost performance art levels. It's not new, but it's never been this circular. Christine's dialogue loops around like a self-parody, defensive, repetitive, and suspiciously overzealous. The protest against North Carolina is especially theatrical. She dismisses it as though the state personally wronged her. Perhaps a pine tree once looked at her the wrong way. The insistence feels less like preference and more like justification. Her reaction makes more sense when viewed through the lens of envy. Once upon a time, Christine imagined a family clustered in Utah, orbiting around her domestic dream. Instead, everyone's migrated toward Janelle's daughter, Maddie, who has quietly become the family's new gravitational center, the mother goose Christine once was.
Of course she's defensive. She's losing her audience. Then there's the almost comedic hypocrisy of Christine praising Mykelti as wife of the year for supporting Tony's chess career. This from the woman who spent decades catering to a husband who openly declared he wasn't attracted to her. The irony could power a small city.
Her comments about Mykelti's 1992 home being old add another layer of generational dissonance. Apparently, the early 90s now qualify as ancient history. For Christine, though, the real fossil might be her narrative. Once the underdog fans rooted for, she's veering dangerously close to the same self-absorbed loop that made Kody insufferable. Even her own daughter Gwen reportedly once said Christine is as bad as Kody. Whether or not that quote was verified hardly matters. The behavior speaks for itself. Christine has become trapped in the echo chamber of her own choices, defending her house, her man, and her state as though saying it often enough will make it meaningful again. At this point, Christine likes her house isn't just a statement, it's a mantra. And like all mantras, it's meant less to convince others than to calm the person chanting it. Christine has her house. Kody has his ego. You have the subscribe button.